Hello, hello, Roger here, your incredible farmer. Glad you could join us today. Here we are locked down, COVID-19, cabin fever. Haven't seen my favorite Mexican restaurant in weeks. So what are we going to do? We're going to grow some nutrient-dense food here today. Lots of reasons that we should be growing nutrient-dense food. Let me give you just one. It's tragic what's taking place right now with COVID-19. Not trying to belittle it in any way. Our hearts and our prayers go out to those people that have lost loved ones. But in these United States of America, just go to your CDC website. The last year they have statistics for cancer is 2018. In the year 2018, if you take the number of people that died from cancer in this country and divide it on down, it comes down to 70 per hour or more than one person per minute. Now, we can stamp whatever percentage of that equation that we wanted to for nutrient deficiency. Let's just say it's 60 or 70% of the reason for cancer is nutrient deficiency. That would be a real good reason for you to want to have nutrient-dense food. Now, Jeffrey Smith put out a documentary a couple weeks ago, Secret Ingredients. And it talked about all the hazards of glyphosate in our food. Now, you can make a decision after watching that video if you want to eat the foods that have glyphosate in them. And you can go down to an organic grocery store and buy some foods that are organic and they will not have glyphosate in it, probably. Now, that's the good news. The bad news is, if you test those pieces of produce that you're buying at your organic grocery store, most of them will fall into the poor category. Now, when I say the poor category, I'm basing that statement on a piece of equipment called a refractometer. This is a nice digital refractometer, simple to use, easy to use. The first refractometer that I got 15 years ago was a huge piece of equipment, cost $5,000, was difficult to use, difficult to calibrate, and the really bad news was I was depressed for 30 days after I got it because everything I tested poor. Now, I sent the unit back to the importer and they checked it all out and sent it back to me and they said, no, this piece of equipment is working fine. Now, I've been going down to a well-known organic grocery store and paying lots of money for what I presume to be nutrient-dense produce. I was disappointed. Now, we, just like everything else, I can remember one of the first offices I worked in here in Phoenix, we had a mainframe computer in there. It took up, 30 feet along the wall, and it could do 6 columns. Well, $5,000 for the first refractometer, and now you can get a nice digital one, handheld, take it anywhere with you, $300. Now, you don't have to have one of these to grow nutrient-dense food. It's just a nice way to measure your progress. The one anecdotal way that you can know if you're growing nutrient-dense food in your garden is if you have insects. If you have insects, you have low density nutrition in your food. The frequency of the plant is within the range of the insect. If you have a high frequency plant, that means you have a nutrient dense plant, and insects navigating with their antennae never see a nutrient dense plant. It's out of their frequency range. Low frequency insects, low nutrition. Now, here's the really bad news. In the world of nutrient dense, green, tall, big, and bushy just don't mean anything. You can pour a bunch of salt-based, petroleum-based fertilizer out there on the garden and grow great, big, green, bushy, tall produce, but if you measure them with the refractometer, you will be disappointed. The nutrient value is not there. So I have put together a program, and it's all based primarily on Ream's biological theory of ionization. Mathematical genius. We have put together what we call the spiritual artifact formula. You add the right spiritual artifacts, all of them supplied naturally to us by our Creator. You put them on at the right ratio, at the right time. based on another reading that you're going to have to get, and you will get a nutrient-dense product. The longer you practice the biological theory of ionization, the more nutrient-dense your crop will become each year. Now, we can't actually go through each step in this video on what you do to grow a nutrient-dense garden. It would take way too long. We're just going to go through steps 1 and 1A. Step number 1 to growing nutrient-dense food is you must set the bacteria in your soil. That's step number 1. Ratioed, aerobic, dynamically. That's the product you have to have. To perpetuate the growth of the product, we start out with creation connection. This will set the bacteria in your soil. Why do you have to have bacteria? Real quickly, it's the bottom of the food chain. If you want the microarthropods and everything else in there to have something to eat, that's where you have to start, with the bacteria. Now, step number 2. This is 101 and 102. Step number 2, you have to keep the soil moist. Now, if you live in the city, if you live in a municipality, and you're taking your hose out there and using municipal water, you're killing the microbes. Why do I say that? Well, they put the chlorine in the water so that we don't get all these diseases growing in the water. The chlorine is not selective. You pour it on the microbes in your garden, it's going to kill the microbes in your garden. If you're growing a garden now and you say, yeah, I'm getting big, tall, green, and bushy, well, yeah, you're not growing with microorganisms. You're growing with a chemical fertilizer. But if you want nutrient dense, you have to grow with microorganisms. So we set the microorganisms. 2 products we have. If you can't afford the really good stuff, you got to at least start with this one called Spring. This goes right on the end of your hose, and it takes the chlorine out of the water. That's 101. You can't put poison on the soil and grow organically. Number 2, if you already have an RO, we have an energized mineral cylinder here that you can put on the RO that you already have. RO, reverse osmosis. Almost everybody in Arizona has one because our water is so bad. Other places in the country, they don't know what I mean when I say RO. This will go right on your RO, plugs in behind the RO membrane and the tank. And this will not only take, the chlorine's already been taken out of the water by your RO before you get here, but what you have with RO water is what I call a dead water. And this re-energizes the water. We have a proprietary frequency in this cylinder. You won't get any place else. I could talk all day about water, but we're going to stop right there. You can get the whole RO system from me, or just retrofit this onto the one you have. And steps 1 and 2, you've now covered. You've set the bacteria with the creation connection, and you're not killing it because you're not pouring the chlorine on it. Now, after you start your plant, you have to add the spiritual artifacts to it in a pre-prescribed way. The way you know to do this is you take a soil sample and then you use this piece of equipment right here. It's called an EC meter. This is a Hanna EC meter. Unfortunately, we haven't had the same thing in the last few years with the EC meters that we had with the refractometer. This one's about $90, not the end of the world. Works good. They usually last me about 3 years before I have to change the probe, and I use them many times every day. Now, I bought one online the other day for $11. And 11 is a lot better than 90 if you're doing the one spending the money. Unfortunately, you have a calibration solution. You put them in, you calibrate the unit. This one seldom drifts as ever. That unit would not calibrate. It came within, it wasn't even within 20% of the calibration. So you have to spend at least this amount to get a good reading. 20% error is not acceptable. So what you do, it's very simple. You don't have to understand what you're doing. It's kind of like your cell phone. You don't have to understand it. You push the button and you get somebody and you talk to them. You push the button and you text them. But you go to your garden and you take a sample. You get one cup of soil and you put it in the cup. And then you take a cup of distilled water and you pour it over the soil. Take a stir. stir it up real good, wait 15 minutes, and then you will pour it off, and then you will take your EC meter and get a reading. So I've already had this one going. It pours off just like so. Turn on your EC meter, put it in, take a reading. Now you'll get a number on there. The number is called microsiemens, and again, you get a chart with your spiritual artifacts. And based on the reading you get from your EC meter, that's what spiritual artifact you give it, at what ratio, at what day. And every day you do a log, every day you take a reading. Take Sunday off if you want. I usually do, except in the summer in Arizona here. I'm still out there watering when it's 110 degrees out there. But you will get, using the spiritual artifacts at the proper ratio, at the proper time, you will get a nutrient-dense crop. Now, you say, I don't have time to do that. Well, fine. You probably know somebody that does. You got a retired neighbor, you got a teenage kid that can't find a summer job. Lots of creative ways that you can start growing nutrient-dense food. And remember, you can't go buy it. I shouldn't say that inclusively, but I've been from one coast to the next and north and south, tested all over the country, and most everything you test comes in the poor category. Some of it gets up into the average category, and I'm talking vegetables. Fruits are easier. The tree is there. You have an apple tree and it mines the soil year after year. A lot better chance of finding a nutrient-dense fruit than you do a nutrient-dense vegetable. They're growing so short. I've got some cucumbers in right now, 47 days. 47 days to a cucumber. So you don't have much time to get all that nutrient in there. Now, let me give you a couple reasons more that you should start a garden in your backyard. Today, the myth of calorie counting is pretty much being diminished. We understand now that a calorie is not a calorie. One of the books that's been written on the subject, Obesity, by Zoe, one of her best illustrations in here that I loved was she said, if you could go back in time and find a Neanderthal man and take him down to the local gym with you, can you see the expression on his face? And what he would say, he says, why are all of these people here wasting all this energy and not gathering any food? He was a hunter and a gatherer. So we all go to the gym to try to stay in shape, and I still go to the gym. There is, value into isolating a muscle and working it. But you don't have to do the treadmill anymore, or the bike. I had a nice 3,000 square foot grow of cannabis. It's legal here in Arizona. And they're organic, and they were, 10, 12 feet high. And I'm up and down the ladder all day long, pruning, trimming, and stringing the cannabis. And I was accomplishing something. I go to the gym and I'd watch those people in their pain to go up and down the steps and accomplishing nothing. So you can get lots of exercise when you do a garden. Number two, another recent discovery that we just automatically lost track of, and that's the art of grounding. Up until 100 years ago, people were in contact with the earth on a regular basis. But today, you put a pair of sneakers on a kid when he enters kindergarten, and he probably won't touch the earth again forever on a regular basis, unless maybe you're one of these lucky people who live by the beach and you go to the beach every weekend. But most people put sneakers on, never touch the ground. You read the book, there's several books out there on all the advantages of grounding. And then number two, you're in the sunlight. It's free vitamin D, it's free nitric acid. You just can't get in a bottle what you're going to get out there in the garden. So you have multiple reasons to do this. Now, we call it multitasking. I was fortunate as a kid. I grew up just 100 yards from my grandparents on the other side of the barnyard. And I go over there on a certain morning, and my grandmother would say to me, don't bother your granddad today, he's just busy as a bee. Well, I used to call it busy as a bee. Today we call it multitasking. Same thing. There's lots of things that we can do that are good for us. So if you want nutrient-dense food, you want some exercise, you want some sun, and you want a turnkey program to do it, Incredible Farmer, it's 602 762-2601. The website is charismaculture.com, CHARISMACULTURE. Charisma, the gifts, all of the gifts into the culture, charismaculture.com. God bless you. Have a great day.